All right, hello everyone. It's Belinda Weaver here for another Bonanza free training session as part of launch week for my Copywriting Masterclass. Today I'm going to be talking about how to create client wowing samples for your empty copywriting portfolio. Because when you're starting out, it's a bit of a catch-22, right? You need clients to get portfolio pieces, but you need portfolio pieces in order to get clients. And this is where a lot of people get stuck because there's this pressure to have both. And it's much like any other job, really. You need experience to get the job, you need a job to get experience. But instead of getting trapped in the catch-22, I have some good news for you. And that is that you don't actually need portfolio pieces to get clients. Yes, having some things in your portfolio does prove that you have worked with other clients. It is a fantastic credibility booster, but it shouldn't stop you making progress and getting out there as a copywriter, because the truth is, if you've got a website, that's your portfolio piece. If you're regularly writing on social media, that's part of your portfolio too. If you have a blog on your website, portfolio pieces, you've got portfolio pieces that demonstrate your skill at writing without necessarily having a beautifully constructed portfolio piece. So don't let a lack of portfolio pieces stop you from making progress as a copywriter and in your copywriting career. Okay, so truth bomb about that. Common myth smashed. That's how I like to start things. The other thing that I want to highlight is that you can actually get referrals from the relationships that you're fostering, from the people that you're making connections with, without having portfolio pieces as well. I mentioned in my previous training all about how to prep to quit your day job, that relationships will bring you more leads than a pretty Instagram feed or a pretty Facebook feed when you're getting started. And when you at least have a website where you can refer people back to, that's enough to start talking to people about working with them. So if you have a website, that's your portfolio piece. If you have a blog, that's your portfolio too. If you're writing on social media all the time, all these things demonstrate your writing credentials and your skill. And when you start making relationships with people and start introducing yourself and getting known as a copywriter, that can bring in leads without there being a portfolio page on your website. So today I'm going to be talking about a few different ways that you can get portfolio pieces up onto your website. And we're going to do a deep dive on one particular way, and that's creating samples yourself. Can you even do that? Yes, you can. So I'm going to very quickly just make sure this is going out to all the places. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. All right, say g'day if you are watching this live. If you are watching the replay, let me know with a hashtag replay and I will push on, because there are actually a few different ways that you can get items into your portfolio without it being a huge stress. Okay, so what are these mystical ways that I keep referring to? Firstly, you can offer to do free work in exchange for a portfolio piece and a testimonial. So what am I saying about in exchange for? It means that you can approach a business and offer to do a specific project for them. Now, you don't want to say, I will write your 20-page website for free. You might want to say, I'll redo your homepage. I'll write your about page. I'll write you one email. I'll write you a spec ad. In exchange for a testimonial that reflects a review of the experience and of the work produced, and permission to use this piece of work that we create together in my portfolio. So when you're getting started, that's a great offer for a local business or for someone in your network, right? Because they've got nothing to lose. I will write some copy for you for free, and all I ask is a testimonial from you when the work is done and permission to use it in my portfolio. Bang. Now, you don't want to get in the habit of doing too much free work, but it can be a great way to not only test your process, but get something in your portfolio and a testimonial as well. And of course, if you do something for free and a local business loves it, then you upsell them to your full rate at the end. But another way is to use websites like Upwork. Now, I always some people really nail Upwork and they earn a lot of money on Upwork, and that's fine. But for many content creators, it is a race to the bottom, because the kind of clients who go on Upwork are looking for the cheapest. They're not looking for the best. But when you haven't got any clients, to get some clients on a site like Upwork is a great start. And as I mentioned, for the free work, you can test your process of getting a brief, handing over your copy, working through revisions, all those kind of things, because it's when you're actually working with clients that all the little gremlins show up and you have to smooth the kinks out in your process. So doing a really cheap project on a place like Upwork can help you test your process. And again, you ask for a testimonial and permission to use it in your portfolio. But the big tip, if you're going to go to a place like Upwork, is get in and get out. Don't stay on Upwork too long, because as I said, the clients are looking for the cheapest, not the best. And you find yourself in a trap of low paid work when you're better than that. You've got the skills. So the trick to moving on, of course, is something I mentioned in the previous training session on how to quit your day job, and that is to get your marketing going. You have to put yourself out there and let everyone know that you are available for taking copywriting work. But as I said, going on a freelance site can help you just get a couple of projects onto your website and take the pressure off that empty portfolio. So that's two ways: free work with friends or local businesses, or cheap, low-paid projects on a place like Upwork. Now, what I want to talk about today, the third option that I want to dig into in a little more detail, is actually creating samples. And the question I get all the time about this is, can we actually do that? Can we make up samples? Yes, you absolutely can. And it's a lot easier than you might think. And I'm going to outline a process that you can follow, because if you sort of go, right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write an ad, and you open up your laptop and you're looking at the blank page and you're like, right, so what do I say? I can't do this. Now, this is especially paralyzing if you're not really confident in your copywriting skills to begin with. And what I'm going to tell you is my first tip, well, it's actually the second one, is start with a brief. Because when you're doing a real copywriting project, you start with a brief, and the brief is everything in a copywriting project. If you don't get a good brief, your ability to write great copy is really inhibited. So I've skipped ahead to step 2. The first thing you want to do is choose a project that you want to write about. Is it an ad? Is it like a small magazine ad? Because if you ever looked at any ads in kind of trade magazines, they're half page, quarter page, column. Like, you can actually put together a really nicely spec'd small ad. But there's also Facebook ads and stuff like that. There is about pages, website pages. There is brochures. Now, if you're going to sit down and write a brochure for a business, don't write a 12-page brochure. Write a really small brochure. Really reduce the scope as much as possible. Keep it simple. Keep the pressure off yourself. So that's the first thing. Choose the kind of project that you're going to spec up as your portfolio piece. Then create a brief. Now, I've actually got a link. I'm going to drop it in to the comments right now, where on my website, I share the questions that I ask in my copywriting brief. Here is the brief. I'm going to put that in there. let's see. Let's make sure I can put it in the comments. Let me know if you see that, because of course, here is the brief. When you have a brief, as I said, it's a lot easier. So go to that article that I just linked to, look at the questions that I ask all my clients and answer those questions for your imaginary client. Now, if you struggle with coming up with an imaginary client, and I used to be a software tester, and coming up with legit test data is really hard. So I would suggest you actually look at your local area and pick a local business. You can change the name if you want, and write down what you already know about that business in the brief. Fill it out as if they have approached you as a real client. And then things you don't know, just make it up. It doesn't matter. This is all about giving yourself the best start to your made-up copywriting project. And if you have a really detailed brief, it will feel a lot more like a real project, and you will be much more able to write copy from it. So choose your project, write the brief, and I just dropped a link to all the questions I ask in my copywriting brief. Now, I want to do a quick sidebar here in talk about my Copywriting Masterclass, because it's open all week. And in the third module, the very final stage of the course, you actually have several writing projects to do. I ask you to write a brochure, I ask you to write a letter, and I ask you to write an email. So if you do the Copywriting Masterclass, you walk away with a couple of samples under your belt. I give you the brief for a company, you write the copy, and then I review it and help you make it better. One of the graduates, Kirsten Shepherd, she actually put the brochure and the letter that she did into Canva, made it look so schmicky, and that's going on her website as a portfolio piece, right? So back to the main drift. The third thing is to look for examples for inspiration, because in my Copywriting Masterclass, in that third module, I tell you what goes where for all kinds of projects, what goes where on all the different types of website pages, what goes where in an ad, what goes where in different types of brochures, how to structure a letter and an email to be persuasive. I tell you what goes where, but it's still a good idea to see lots of different examples, because there's never one way to do stuff. And this is when you should be starting your swipe file. Now, if you haven't heard of a swipe file, this is what every professional has. And it's basically, it's a whole bunch of examples that you swipe and use for inspiration. So I have a folder full of brochures. I have a folder full of letters that I get, finance letters, spam letters, all sorts. I keep everything. It drives my husband crazy. Product, I've got box of boxes under my desk, tags, all those kind of things. I keep them and I'm inspired by them. But there are pages on the internet as well. And I'm going to drop another couple of links for you, because I'll drop that in there. Swipe file websites. You are most welcome, everyone. Can't type and talk. Oh, hang on, I'm not saving the page. Okay, swipe file websites. I'm just going to drop that into the comments, because these are websites that are already out there, and you can say, I want to look for direct mail examples, brochure examples, landing page examples, emails, websites, ads, you name it. There are websites with examples already on there. And so you've chosen your project, you've written out your brief. You can look at examples that have already been created to see how they are structured, what kind of headlines they have, how they order the information, what goes where. I'm saying the same thing, just in lots of different ways. But that is what you can use to help you put the sample together. So you're not writing from a blank page. You're not trying to figure it out. Of course, if you do the course, I'll tell you what goes where. But if you're not doing the course, then, and even if you are, start collecting examples that can inspire you as you're putting your portfolio piece together. Now, the next stage is you write it, right? And that's all it is. You just write it and edit it. So easy. it's actually the hardest part of the project. But because you created a brief and because you've been looking at examples, this stage is a lot easier because you're inspired and you have legitimate information that you're pulling from. You're not trying to make the entire thing up. Now, in the Copywriting Masterclass, you would get feedback from me on your submission and the chance to resubmit it and approve it. But if you don't have that community, then you have For the Love of Copywriting on Facebook. But you probably also know people that you can ask, can you have a quick look at this and tell me what you think, right? So that's the stage 4. So you got to pick the project, you got to write the brief, you got to look around for inspiration, you got to write and edit it, and then stage 5, you present it. Now there are a couple of ways that you can present things in your portfolio. When you actually work with clients, you might take screenshots of the published work. Don't link to the real projects because clients like to fiddle with the copy after we're done. So take screenshots. But sometimes they don't publish it. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes there's an NDA agreement or something where you can't publish it. But if you're allowed to publish it and it's not available or it got changed for some reason, you can actually just publish the copy. That's the important thing. But if you're handy in Canva, get into Canva. There are templates for brochures and letters and ads and you name it, Canva's got it. And that's a really quick and easy way to make your copywriting sample look legit and very, very pretty. Now, when you're actually putting it in your portfolio as well, you want to have some information. You just say, this is a portfolio sample for an email marketing welcome series or a DL brochure for a travel company. The objective of this piece is to make sales, get calls, book consultation, because this is how you would present it in a real portfolio. You would talk about what the job is, what the objective was, and maybe you would write a couple of lines about how you approached it. That's kind of the beginning of a case study, but that's how you can present your portfolio piece and it looks extremely credible and it's not wrong or lying or anything like that because you wrote the copy. That's what you're showing off, your copy. So that is the mystical secret to making up copywriting samples. But I really want to go back to this point. Starting with as a brief that is as real as possible makes it so much easier. And then starting to collect things and look around you for a swipe file will give you so much inspiration that will also make it so much easier. But I think the biggest hurdle is up here where we think, I can't make up samples. That doesn't seem right. And it's totally legit. So let me know what you think. As I said, if you're watching the replay, let me know #replay. If you've got questions, post them in the comments as well. And I'll just quickly recap. So there are a couple of ways you can get samples. But first, you don't have to have samples in order to get work. So don't let that stop you. Building relationships, making connections, introducing yourself as a copywriter, okay? Because referrals and relationships will bring in more leads than a pretty portfolio page or a pretty Insta profile. As much as I love a pretty Insta profile. And then I went through ways that you can actually get portfolio pieces. The first way is do some free work for friends, for local businesses in exchange for a testimonial and a portfolio, permission to use it in your portfolio. A site like Upwork, where you basically work for really cheap prices, test your process, get a testimonial, get portfolio pieces. But get in and get out. Don't work for free or work for cheap very long. But it could be the start of a relationship that you then move people onto your real rates. And then finally, just make it up, but make it good, right? That's the line. Make it up, but make it good as well. All right, I'm going to quickly check in to see if there are any questions here. Oh, I'm liking all the people who are saying hello to me. Excellent. All right. It's scrolling really fast and I can't necessarily see all the comments. Tiffany, Keisha, Sonia, hello, hello, hello. All right. Well, I can always catch up on questions after the session. So drop them in if you have got questions, and be sure to look for the links, because I dropped a link to the questions that I ask in my copywriting brief, and 2 links to swipe files online, which are a treasure trove. June is asking, if you put up made up portfolio pieces on your website, what do you do if a prospective client asks who the client was that you did the work for? Well, you could just say, this is a spec piece that I made up for a local business. It's as simple as that. Using a spec piece makes it sound a little bit fancier, but you can admit, you can say, this is a spec sample that I did for a local business to create a sample of my email copywriting, of my brochure copywriting, of my website copywriting. In my experience, when I first launched my website, all my samples were made up, or they were actually from my day job. Eventually from my day job, because I felt a bit worried about putting those in there without permission. But I did just make up samples, and I never had a client ask me. Who was that for? Prove that you did it, right? Clients usually just want to see something. Now, you will eventually get to the point where you have so many portfolio pieces, you don't want every single piece there. So you can move to a mode where you say portfolio pieces are available on request. And that means you can say, oh, you're asking about my email marketing service. Here are 3 specific examples in your industry, and it's a much more curated conversation. But in the beginning, you just kind of want something that says, I have worked with clients. But I want to loop back to that. There are a couple of options if you have an empty portfolio. Don't put that page on your website and leave it empty. Don't publish the portfolio page until you have some stuff to put in it. And if clients say, have you got any portfolio pieces? Ask them if they have any specific requests for types of projects or industries. There's always a bit of blag you can do, and then you can decide whether you make up a sample for them, or you say, I don't have a sample for that industry of that type, but the copywriting skills that I have mean that I can write for any industry on any type of project. So let's talk about your project. So you can always, there are never any roadblocks to conversations with clients that you can't overcome or kind of nicely sidestep with a little bit of charm. And June says, if I have samples of newsletter articles I wrote forever ago and they're only available in hard copy, should I put some samples into a Canva template? Yes, absolutely. If you wrote it, put it in your portfolio. And you could also, if you've got them, you could take a photo, but if you can recreate them in Canva, absolutely do that, because Canva is magic. And June says, so you don't need to provide names of businesses, it sounds like. Look, the more details you provide, the more credible it is. So that's for testimonials. That's for any claims of success. That's for portfolio pieces. If you said, I wrote an 8 email onboarding sequence for Belinda Weaver for her Copywriting Masterclass in August 2020, that's a lot of detail. That's super credible, rather than I wrote some emails for a client, right? But work with what you've got. I think if you made up a business name and you say, this is a sample spec piece, I think that's enough information, right? You don't need to over explain it. There's this kind of fine line between over explaining it and blurting everything out and holding something back and maybe letting clients fill in the gaps. But the point is, you wrote the copy, right? That's what you want people to focus on, the copy that you wrote. Great questions, Jean. Oh, Keisha says, this is wonderful. Thank you very much. And Helen asks, do you have to get permission to use copy you wrote for a real client in your portfolio? That's a great question. So in my standard terms and conditions, I have a line in there that says work produced as a result of this project will be used in my portfolio unless the client specifies otherwise. So when I kick off a project, I walk the client through the process of working with me and the terms and conditions, just so we're all nice and clear about who's doing what, who expects what, when, and what our obligations are. So, you know, it's in the terms and conditions, but I make sure they're okay with it. Normally, the only times I've had a client who's not okay with it is when I've had to sign an NDA, which hasn't happened very often. So, you know, more often than not it is there, but make sure it's in the terms and conditions just to cover your ass a little bit. All right, I'm just checking to see if there's any more questions. June says, I wrote a brochure for a business a couple of years ago in an industry I have no desire to write for. Do I still include that? This is a great question. So when you're curating your portfolio, you have to decide, is this work I want to do? Because the more you talk about specific types of work, that's the work you will get. If you want to go, this happened to a member of my Confident Copywriting group. She asked me, I want to get into email marketing. I want to get into writing it. That's the niche I want to get into. How do I start getting those projects? And my advice was, you start talking about email marketing. You start talking about those projects. That's pretty much all you talk about. And that's the inquiry she started to get. So if you want to write brochures, include it. If you don't want to write brochures, don't include it. If you don't want to write for that industry, but you do want to write brochures, I would include, yep, you want to write brochures, but just not for this industry. I would include it if you're kind of a bit desperate for portfolio pieces. I would include it because you can always specify, I don't actually write for that industry. This is just an example of a brochure. So you can always qualify a lead as they come in. And then once you have more examples, you can just quietly retire that one if you want. So that's another tip there. What you talk about, the stories you tell, and that's the stories you tell about the work you're doing, the stories you tell about the work you love, and then you're excited about, the stories that you tell about the clients that you're working with. Those are the kind of projects and clients and, oh, I've forgotten the last word I was going to say, but that's the stories you tell will determine the kind of work and inquiries that you get. So if you have a lot of testimonials and you're publishing all the time, but you're not happy with the kind of clients that you're getting, look at the kind of stories that you're sharing, look at the kind of testimonials, and start curating those stories to fit the kind of work that you want to do. June says, your responses are extremely helpful. Thank you. You are most welcome. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that as part of my Copywriting Masterclass, you get given copywriting projects to do. So there's a how to write a website, which is what goes on a homepage, a contact page, an about page, a services page, how to write product descriptions, right? It's all in there. What goes where and how to put it together. How to write a direct mail letter, how to put brochures together, whether they're small DL brochures or huge A4 12-page brochures. This is a process of construction. You spend 2 modules in the Copywriting Masterclass learning the techniques, and they are the building blocks of copywriting. Then the 3rd module shows you how to put the blocks together for different types of projects. David Tennant will be proud. Thank you, Sonia. So if you're really struggling to put portfolio pieces, that's an option of the course where I ask you to write specific projects. You submit the work to the forum. You get a hot seat review by me and told different ways that you can improve the copy. Then, like recent graduate Kirsten did, you bung it into Canva. You've got 3 portfolio samples ready to go. And using the knowledge in the Copywriting Masterclass, you can actually create more samples. So these are samples for a business name that you get a brief for, right? And that you have to make look legit. So that is a very powerful option. And, you know, in the Copywriting Masterclass, as I mentioned, we spend 2 modules. It's a lot of lessons talking about the technical elements of copywriting, because copywriting isn't isn't a talent. People aren't born with the ability to write good copy. It's a skill. And when it's a skill, it can be learned. And I would say that copywriting, really good copywriting, is about 80% technique and process and about 20% creative sprinkling, right? But in the Copywriting Masterclass, I also give you processes, a few different processes to come up with ideas, because creativity is a muscle. The more you try it and the more you do, the better you get. And that's just like your writing as well. The more you write, the better you get. It's as simple as that. And so this course is all about learning some things and then practicing the skill, getting feedback from me. And if you get the no limits option, you can just keep resubmitting and get, keep refining those skills. But if you don't practice and you don't get feedback, it is virtually impossible to know if you're any good. And I know that when I started as a copywriter, it took me a long time. Each time I got more practice and more confidence, I would look back at earlier pieces and go, geez, I missed some big bits there. I didn't see the next step that I should have been taking in my brainstorming and my writing. But that's what students of the Copywriting Masterclass get. They get me saying, that's great. You've stopped here, but you need to take a few extra steps to go as far as you can, because when you write bland copy, you stop here. Great copy takes those extra few steps, but without someone more experienced to tell you what those extra steps are and show you when you need to take them, it is really hard and really time consuming to figure it out on your own. So that's my Copywriting Masterclass. It's open all week. I'm closing it on Sunday. I'm welcoming people in. They're joining the private Facebook group. There's even been a worksheet submitted, and I had to go, hey, it's all right. We got the welcome party on the 11th. Then we got our first coaching call on the 21st. I'm looking at a wall of sticky notes of all the people joining in. And it's going to be super fun. We have weekly calls, so you get instant access to everything. So you can dig in between now and the first call. But then we have weekly calls with themes. And you get an email saying, on the coaching call on Friday, we're going to be talking about the first couple of lessons, motives and mindset. Submit this worksheet before Friday and we'll talk about it on the call. And I scoop up all the worksheets and we talk about them on the call. And each week has a theme. So we stay on target and we get to the end. And when we're doing the writing projects, I do little mini hot seats. So if you submit the work, I will review it in those hot seats, right? If you show up, I show up. I do everything I can to help you write better copy. And everyone says they get more confident faster and they write better copy faster. Yes, Mark. Hi, Mark. Mark's in the course. He signed up. Said looking forward to it. It's going to be great. June's posted a question. Will the market, i.e. prospective clients, basically tell me if I've hit the mark or done good work in my portfolio pieces? No, not really. And you shouldn't be looking for validation from a client to tell you you've done a good job. I know we all do look for that. They will either want to work with you or not. But, there's never any black and white decision. And I'm not saying you need to stalk your clients or anything like that, but don't let portfolio pieces stop you from reaching out and building relationships, and also having conversations with clients about how you can serve them, right? It's very easy to go, if I don't have a portfolio, I've got nothing and I won't get work. And that's a very self-limiting belief that's very hard to get out of, but you absolutely can. A lot of people, a lot of great, really busy copywriters don't have portfolio pages on their website at all, but it's about collecting testimonials and getting reviews and stuff like that. The portfolio pieces are really just to go, look, I did some stuff with some other people. More often than not, clients just want to see that you did some stuff. If someone looks at the portfolio piece and says, thinks to themselves, well, this isn't really what I'm looking for, there is a point where you can say, what did you think? And they might go, oh, it wasn't really what we were looking for. Ask more questions. What is it you were looking for? I might have something else in my portfolio that can help. There's always a point where you can keep talking to people and find something that you can offer that does meet their needs. So, there's never let kind of a radio silence or a no stop you from continuously asking questions to see how you can help. But don't look for a pat on the head as a, good job. I liked it. I will like you. But hopefully they say, I looked at your portfolio and it looks great and I'd love to get started. Oh, right. I see June asks, should I expect to see prospective clients come to me based on the work that I put up? So you should, if you are talking about specific types of projects that you want, that will influence the type of clients you get. The type of work that you publish in your portfolio will influence the type of inquiries you get. But let's be real here. A portfolio is simply one of many credibility markers on your website. It's never the only one. So your website is also proof of your work. Testimonials is proof of your work. Talking about your process gives people some certainty about how you work. There are lots of different, any kind of awards, accreditations, logos that you have is a credibility marker. There's lots of different ways that you can build trust around your writing. We talk about this in the Copywriting Masterclass. But it's not just the portfolio pieces, but the work you talk about, the clients you talk about, and the pieces in your portfolio will influence the type of inquiries that you get. For example, if you never talk about brochures, you won't get brochure inquiries. If you never talk about emails, you won't get email inquiries. It's as simple as that, really. Christina says, most prospective clients or the market know good copy or conversion copy. What a prospect thinks is good copy and what a good copywriter thinks is great copy is night and day. This is a really good point, Christina. And that's what I mean. June, no need to apologize. So clients usually just want to see you've done some stuff. They are actively looking for credibility markers because whenever we're making a decision, we're looking for the option that makes us feel safest, right? Imagine they've got lots of tabs open and they're looking to compare all the options. So portfolio pieces are just a credibility marker to help them compare and reduce the anxiety. Other ways are describing your process in detail, having your terms and conditions available, having testimonials, having logos, offering a guarantee of some description. All these things will help prospective clients feel safe working with you. That's what they want. Portfolio piece is just another thing in the list that you can have. All right, I'm just going to quickly check around. Great questions, June. Really great questions. Thank you very much for asking those. All right, so I dropped a link to my Copywriting Masterclass. If it's something you're interested in, if you have questions about what it includes, how it works, because, you get instant access to everything. You get lifetime access to everything. I've actually done a massive upgrade of a lot of the pieces of content, more examples, different examples, prettier pictures. I added product descriptions. I'm always updating the course, but I never charge alumni for the new version. So you sign up once, you get all the future upgrades in all their glory. You get lifetime access to the coaching calls. So if you miss a couple, they're recorded and you can search them, right? I've got this really whizzy widget that means you can search all the course content and the coaching calls for specific phrases. It's so good. But that's today's training session wrapped up. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about how to turn vague, unhelpful revisions and feedback from clients into approved copy, because that can be the next moment of terror. I've talked about quitting your day job. I've talked about having an empty portfolio. The next big moment of terror is getting feedback that says, I don't like it and I can't tell you why. So I'm going to step you through a really fantastic process to nail that down and get copy approved. Also, some ways you can prepare so you don't actually get to that awkward conversation. So I hope you've enjoyed this free training. Let me know how you found it. Drop any big takeaways, any big nuggets that really popped out. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. And I will see you back here tomorrow. And of course, if you have any questions about the Copywriting Masterclass, ask me. All right, take care, everyone.